राधा कृष्ण को गोपना शाम कुंड राधा कुंड वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवदीप धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, द्वारका धाम की जय, स्वामी भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to God. All glories to God. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mother. My obeisances. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Mother Malati. Your mic is muted. Please unmute your mic.
Yep.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
There you go. Hare Krishna.
You are welcome to our platform. Yes, nice to see you. So I'll put the verse on the screen so we can start, please. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I just might use, it's a little hard for me to read, just a minute. Yeah. Okay. So we start now?
Yes, Mother. Thank you.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today, reading from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the beautiful song of God, and verse 32 out of the second chapter. So first I'm going to say the word by word and translation, and then I will chant the verse. Yadritshaya, by its own accord, cha, also, upapanam, arrived at, swarga, heavenly planet, dwaram, door, apavritam, wide open, sukhina, very happy, kshatriya, members of the royal order, partha, O son of Partha, of course that means Arjuna, labhyante, do achieve, yudam, war, idrisham, like this. Yadrishayakopapanam swargatvaram apavritam, sukina kshatriya partha, labhante yudam idrisham. The translation. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. Purport. As the supreme teacher of the world, Lord Krishna condemns the attitude of Arjuna, who said, I do not find any goodwill in this fighting. It will cause perpetual habitation in hell. Such statements by Arjuna were due to ignorance only. He wanted to become non-violent in the discharge of his specific duty. For a Kshatriya to be in the battlefield and to become non-violent is the philosophy of fools. In the Parasara Smriti are religious codes made by Parashara, the great sage and father of Vyasadeva, it is stated that Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizens from all kinds of difficulties. And for that reason, he has to apply violence in suitable cases for law and order. Therefore, he has to conquer the soldiers of inimical kings, and thus, with religious principles, he should rule over the world. Oh, just a second here, it disappeared. Considering all aspects, Arjuna had no reason to refrain from fighting. If he should conquer his enemies, he would enjoy the kingdom. And if he should die in battle, he would be elevated to the heavenly planets whose doors are wide open to him. Fighting would be for his benefit in either case. So again, can read the verse. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. Om Gyantamrandasya Janana Sakalaya Chakshumilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paskatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu vaivyacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So I would like to express my gratitude that you've invited me to speak today, and being in your company, for those I can see and can't see, but knowing you're there makes my heart happy. You're such wonderful devotees. And I'm hoping that somehow or other before I quit this body, I may have the opportunity to again visit Ghana and see all of you in person. So actually in around 73, Srila Prabhupada was in London. And he was speaking practically daily on Bhagavad Gita. And this was the chapter, and this is one of the verses that he was speaking about. So Prabhupada explained that it is the duty of the Kshatriyas to see that everyone is executing his proper professional or occupational duty. That's swadharma mapi chaveksya. He said this is very important. And in his talk, which of course that was in the 70s, he said, at the present moment, there is no swadharma. No one knows what they're supposed to do or not to do. So that was how many years ago? 50 years ago. Has anything changed? I think not. So therefore, according to Vedic injunctions, dharmena hina pasubhi samana, one who is not executing his own religious principle, he is no better than animal. Hina pasubhi is pasu, the animal. So who will see that everyone is engaged in discharging his occupational duty. This swadharman is meaning occupational duty. So Prabhupada explains it's the duty of the king, the government. In the beginning, it's the duty of the father, of the teacher, to train children to be followers of Swadharma and to understand the principles. It's the duty of the Brahmana to see his son is properly trained up as a Brahmana. Satyam samodamas tiksha arjavan Brahmana karma swabhavajan. So in that verse, 1842, it's outlining what are the principles of a Brahman, what are the qualities of a Brahman. And I was going to bring it up here, but no, here we go. And in this world today, following principles, following any guidelines of good human beings, for good humanity, it's just disregarded. People don't want to be told anything about how they should act, how they should speak. They don't want to know. Even I was such a foolish, ignorant person that when my husband, Shamsundar, before we were married, he was speaking, we have to get a guru, we need a teacher. And I was such a foolish American woman, I said, if you want a guru, you get a guru, but I don't want anyone telling me what to do. I want to make my own mistakes. You know, what that's the speech of a fool. So the duty of a Brahman, Satyan Samudamas Titiksha Arjavan Brahma Karma Swabhavajam, that first a Brahmana should be taught how to become truthful, first of all. And Prabhupada explained that a Brahma will never speak a lie at any cost. And he gave an example. He said that even if an enemy inquires something confidential from him, he'll say, yes, this is my position. So that is truthfulness. He won't even lie to an enemy. He has to be truthful. And also, Kshatriyas, they are also truthful. They should be truthful, a truthful person. That truthfulness is such a valuable quality. And it makes one a powerful Brahmana. Satyam is truthfulness. And then he had given an example how a Brahman is recognized. And he gave this little example that one Satyakam went to Gautama Muni, and he was asking, please, I want to become your disciple. So according to the Vedic principle, without becoming a Brahmana, he can't be accepted as a disciple. And Prabhupada said, in our society also, we do not accept a disciple unless he's Brahmanically qualified, which he explained, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. He said, this is Brahmanical. So he asked Gautama, I want to be your disciple. And Gautama says, all right, who is your father? And he truthfully replied, I don't know. I'll ask mother. So he went to his mother, and the mother informed him that, unfortunately, even she doesn't know. It means the mother was probably engaging in some prostitute type of behavior. So she didn't know. She had many men. So she says, I don't know. So he went back to Gautama Muni, and he told Gautama Muni exactly what the mother told him. Even my mother doesn't know. I don't know who my father is. And because he was truthful, Gautama then accepted him as his disciple. I had an experience in my early Krishna consciousness in San Francisco. I mean, it wasn't to such a degree that I was asking a person, I was becoming a disciple of a person, but a person from the newspaper. And in those days, newspapers were very powerful. So this newspaper in San Francisco was called The Examiner, very, very powerful paper. And somehow one of the reporters had heard about our little temple in Haight-Ashbury. And they have, newspapers, they'll have these different sections. So the section was not actually the religious section, as it might be thought it might be, but it was actually a section kind of devoted to society at large, what's going on in the society. And so she came to see, well, what is this? And by chance, I was there in the temple. Not so much by chance, I was always there. I was always cooking. That was my service. And so she introduces herself, and then she starts to ask questions, and she hears about the 4 rules and regulations. So she said to me, so all of you follow like that? Now, I could have bluffed and said, oh, yes, of course we do. But the truth was, no, at that point, we were still struggling. So we were trying to. We were trying to follow them strictly. And because of that, because I told her the truth, she became impressed that these people are honest people. And she wrote a very favorable article that was including pictures. In fact, the name of the article was Malati and Her Dancing Gopis. Anyway, because of that article, we got a lot of favorable reactions from the people in society. And it gave a boost to our small operation there. So truthfulness, please excuse me if I start coughing. It just happens sometimes and I have no control over it. So Prabhupada explains, truthfulness, you become a powerful person, not to use power for yourself, but powerful in terms of being able to execute your swadharma, your principles, your duties. So Prabhupada said, unless one is free from sinful activities, so these 4 things, you're free from sinful activities, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, etc. And that's the basic ground rules for Brahminical behavior. And Prabhupada expressed, if you're not free from these sinful activities, how can you become a Brahmin? Brahmin means suchi, cleanliness. And others are called kripana, or muchi. Muchi means, I think you all know, unclean. Suchi means always cleansed. So this bhayantara suchi, inside and out. Outside by taking bath, that is external cleanliness, and internal cleanliness means rising early in the morning, evacuating and then taking a bath and chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, see Mangal Arti, like that. And this way one has to purify themselves internally and externally. And then Prabhupada commented that God consciousness is not so cheap thing. Yesham tu anantagatam papam gyanam punya kamananam. So one who is completely free from all contamination of material modes, it means modes of ignorance and the modes of passion and even the mode of goodness are not conflicting the person. So free from contamination, antagatam papam, free from the sinful activities. They can stick to the principles of devotional service. Otherwise, Prabhupada explains, if you're not free from this contamination of material life, then one may make a show of devotion, but he said that's not actual devotion. It's called bhakyabhasa. It means shadow devotion. So these things have to be observed and have to be understood. The Brahmana's duty is to present himself as an ideal human being, the satyam samodhammas tiksha, and tiksha means toleration. So Prabhupada gives the example of, it's very cold. I can't take a bath. But Prabhupada said, no, you must tolerate. You just tolerate this tiksha, artavam, simplicity, jnanam, full knowledge, vijnanam, practical application, jnanam, vijnanam, atiksham. So this astikyam means completely convinced of God and your relationship with God. That is astikyam. In other words, full faith in the statement of the Vedas. Whatever the Vedas say, that's right. Yes, no argument, astikyam. And similarly, Kshatriya, the Kshatriya's duty is Shatram Dvijatam Cha Parasparat Tatam. The Brahmanas will examine whether the Kshatriyas are doing their duty nicely. Just like Parashuram, when he saw that all the Kshatriyas had become rascals, he wanted to kill every one of them. And 21 times he was killing all these rascal, Prabhupada uses that word, rascal Kshatriyas. It means they were not following the principles of Kshatriya life. And some of those Kshatriyas, they fled, they ran away from India, and they came to the European countries. And then Prabhupada explained, therefore, the origin of the Europeans were Kshatriyas, Turkey, Greece, other countries also. So it's the duties of the Brahmana to see that the Kshatriyas are doing their duty nicely. And similarly, the Brahmana's duty is to see whether, the Kshatriya's duty is to see whether Brahmanas are doing their duty. So Kshatriyas weren't needed to see the Brahmanas because the Brahmanas were so advanced, they were beyond examination of the Kshatriyas. In other words, they were acting in such a manner that there was no discrepancy in their behavior. But another duty of the Kshatriyas is to see that people are being spiritually educated. That is the Kshatriya's duty, or the king. The king is looking over the citizens to see if they're being properly trained. And then Prabhupada said, just like in some secular states at the present moment. So again, this present moment Prabhupada was speaking about 50 plus years ago, and nothing has changed. So Prabhupada says this, secular means you do all nonsense, we don't care. You just pay me the tax, that's all. Give me income tax, and then you can go to hell, it doesn't matter. Prabhupada said, in other words, people can do whatever they want. This is not a secular state. Secular state means that the state and the state's rulers, of course, the Kshatriyas must be very vigilant whether someone is doing his duty, whether everyone is employed in his duty. And if everyone's not employed, it's the duty of the government to see that they must be employed. So, at least in America, unemployment is a big discussion, and the president's success is sometimes measured against the unemployment or the employment of the citizens. Because and this is fitting, it's said that, the Brahman is employed, the Kshatriya is employed, the Vaishya is employed. Otherwise, if they're unemployed, then the idle brain becomes the devil's workshop. And Prabhupada said that is happening, and yes, it's happening. Interestingly enough, due to the pandemic, of course, probably also in your country, I don't know, but here, many businesses went out of business, or they're on furlough, means they're not operating for the time being, or they're operating at a less degree, which means that people were laid off. And so they have this situation that if you're laid off, you can apply for and receive unemployment benefit. In other words, you'll get money because you were employed and through no fault of your own, you were employed. So now you get some benefit for some time. And because of the pandemic, the amount of the money of the unemployment has gone up, and the length of time, it's usually just for a short amount of time, because if you're laid off, they expect you to go find another job, or else like in New Vrindavan, you're laid off just for a particular amount of time during the winter, and then when the spring comes again, everything starts up again. So during the winter, they can receive this unemployment benefit, so-called benefit. However, what's happened now, because they increased the length of time for the unemployment in America, and they increased the amount of money they were giving to the unemployed, nobody wants to work. Everywhere you go, you see signage, hiring, and then they list all the benefits you if you come and work here, hiring. And New Vrindavan also, hiring. And what's happening? Nobody's coming forward because they get more money by collecting their unemployment. It's, as Prabhupada calls, topsy-turvy world. And Prabhupada was also explaining how, well, they've discovered the machine is doing the work of hundreds of men. So then that means 100 men are not employed. And the machine has not improved the situation. It's improved the pocket of the capitalist, but it's not improved the condition of the mass of people. So here is the perversion, is that here are jobs available with pay, but why bother to work if you can get more money by not working? So unfortunate situation. So therefore, in the Western countries, due to this machine age industry, Prabhupada was describing how back then they're from the university, they're producing hippies, means people who don't work. So there were thousands of unemployed young boys and girls. And actually that worked to the benefit of beginning the Hare Krishna movement, because these young, unemployed, mostly educated young boys and girls, they had nothing to do. And so when the opportunity came and they were introduced to Krishna consciousness, they immediately took to it full time. And because of that, there was what Hayagriva Prabhu described as the Hare Krishna explosion. Now it's a different story, because people, they have their own residence, they have their jobs. So they don't have the time to be full-time in actually pushing on the mission. It doesn't mean they're not devotees, not at all, just that they don't, their priorities are slightly adjusted, because hey, if you have a job and you haven't been laid off, then you have to go to work, even if it means, opening up your computer at your home and checking in, because a lot of people now are working. I guess, I don't know if it's that way in your country, but in the West, they're working online. So then Prabhupada was saying that, the whole battlefield, the whole thing's topsy-turvy. Why? Because there's no good kings or rulers. I mean, even in terms of this pandemic, you can say, well, that has nothing to do with the kings or rulers. But yes, their lack of responsible behavior has caused, something that was happening to expand widely, to become, a universal problem. So the whole battlefield of Kurukshetra was arranged by Krishna so that these irresponsible rogues that were dressed like kings should all be killed. That was Krishna's plan. Just like Duryodhana, he was also dressed like a king, but he was a rogue. He was a rascal, and he cheated the Pandavas by gambling. You bet your wife, you bet your kingdom, and this way they were simple devotees, and he cheated them. So Krishna wanted that these cheaters and these rogues must be killed. That was his plan. And therefore he said, Yach haya kopapanam swargadharam apavritam. Arjuna, you're hesitating to fight, but it's a great opportunity for you, because as a Kshatriya, if you kill these cheaters and rogues, there will be a great achievement for you. And even though you cannot kill them, if you die yourself, then the door to heaven is open for you. Because it is said that a Kshatriya who dies in the battlefield for the right cause, underscore that part, for the right cause, he goes to heaven. If he conquers over the enemy, he enjoys the kingdom. So if you die, either way, he will not lose. But Prabhupada emphasized, but the cause must be right. We're not the only ones who say that, the fighters, they will go to heaven if they, go out in the battlefield, you die on the battlefield, go to heaven. That is also prevalent in other religions, such as I think, the Muslims also have that, if you die in battle, you'll go to heaven, but then they describe the heaven, you'll have unlimited company of young, beautiful girls. So their idea of heaven isn't exactly the same as what we would describe as heaven. It's like a heavenly planet, but heaven is not a permanent place eternally. If you go there, you're not going to be eternally there. But then this other mindset, like of the Muslim mindset, that they will gladly die then. So then you get things like suicide bombers. You get things like, when they crashed all those planes into the buildings in America in 9/11. That's not righteous. That's not what Krishna is talking about to Arjuna. This Lahante Yudam Idisham. So this Yudam means a political fight. And Prabhupada gave an example, like at the time in India, Pakistan and Hindustan, India, they were always planning fighting. And that Prabhupada said, that's political. And when the Pakistan government cannot manage, no one's managing nicely, neither Pakistan or Hindustan, then they divert their attention to the religious slogan. So one side goes, Hindus are our enemy, and the other side is, Pakistan is our enemies. So this nationalism, it's everywhere. So Yashatma Buddhi Kanapi Tri Tatuke, that here in anywhere in the world, but especially in Europe, Prabhupada gave the example that there were 2 wars, in other words, World War I and II, were arranged by the German people who were envious of the English. So these wars, based on mundane qualities, these are not righteous wars. Prabhupada describes them as a play, a drama of the diplomats and politicians. And they're trying to engage people one way or the other. And when they can't manage things very nicely, then they engage people in war to divert the attention. But that is not war is not meant for that. War is meant for when people are not properly being trained by the king of the state or the head of the state, then other kings can attack them. So an ideal state means that the king must be very responsible. Just like in our temples, we have a temple president. Sometimes we have temple council, but the administrators must be very responsible, taking care in every instant of the devotees who have come to serve in that particular project. So then Prabhupada gives example of what a responsible king, just like Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was a pious king, Rajarshi. And in Bengal, he gave a proverb. He says, in Bengal, there's a proverb, this Rajar Dashe Rajanasto Dosa Grahasta Brashta. So if the king is not pious, the whole kingdom is spoiled. And then he gives another, he says, similarly, if the housewife is not good, the whole family is spoiled. So the king must be very honest, pious, and religious. And therefore, they're called Rajarshi. Raja is the king, right? But although they're a king, they're actually, if they're a king on the proper level, then they were just like saintly persons. And Maharaj Yudhisthira, he was a saintly person, a Rajarshi. Imam Rajarshi Vidu. Sometimes, Prabhupada was giving this example, how sometimes devotees are accused that they go and they preach among the richer section, as if that would be, a problem. So it's given like an accusation. And Prabhupada commented, well, the richer section, of course, there's no king, but he said, actually, this Bhagavad Gita is meant for the richer section who used to control the kings. Because if the king is educated nicely in spiritual affairs, if he knows what's the purpose of the kingdom, what is the purpose of ruling, then all the citizens will automatically become religious and purposeful. But if the king is just, some kind of a rascal guy, someone who's irreligious, others will follow. They'll also become rascals. You know that famous verse, so whatever the great man does, the common man will follow. And therefore, the importance of having good leaders, pious leaders, righteous leaders, cannot possibly be understated. It's the very backbone of good governance, of good citizenship. In the 4th chapter in the Gita, he mentions how that we'll find Krishna first was teaching Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanamam Avayam. So he taught this philosophy first to the sun god. And then he explained there's two Kshatriyas families, the Surya Vamsa, the sun, and Chandra Vamsa, the moon. So one family coming from the sun god, and another family is coming from the moon god. So Krishna said that because the sun was the principal man in the Kshatriya family of Surya Vamsa, so he was first taught. This is 4:1. This Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanaham Avayam Vivaswan Manave Praha Manurik Swake Swak Ikswavkave Bhavit. So this Maharaj Ikshakshu, he was the first king of the dynasty in which Lord Ramchandra took birth. Very pious family. And just a few days ago, we had the glorious celebration of the advent, the appearance of Lord Ramchandra, who was, although the supreme personality of God himself, an ideal leader, an ideal king. So this worship of Lord Ramchandra began from Maharaj Ikshaku. And Maharaj Ikshaku used to worship the deity of Ramchandra, Ram Sita Ram. Therefore, in their family, Lord Ramchandra appeared. And Prabhupada said this deity that was worshipped by Ikshaku is still existing in some part of South India. And it was worshipped in the family since Maharaj Ikshaku. And then when Lord Ramchandra was personally present, the deity was kept in his bedroom. Otherwise, the deity is non-different from the Lord. So that when the Lord was present, the deity position was, here's the Lord right here. So the need of worshiping the deity was not so necessary. So it happens that this one Brahmana used to come and see Lord Ramchandra. Then he would take breakfast, and Prabhupada said that was his principle, regulative principle. So Lord Ramchandra was absent for a week or so from the kingdom. And during that time, this Brahmana did not even take a little water. Why? Because he could not see Lord Ramchandra. Now, such a devotee, so committed. So Lakshman informed Ramchandra, here is a devotee, a Brahmana, and you were absent from the kingdom for 1 week. So during that time, he didn't even take a drop of water. So Lord Ramchandra was very pleased. You can imagine, yes, this is my devotee, very pleased. Then he ordered Lakshman, you give him that deity, which has been worshipped in our family. And now it's stopped. Because Ramchandra was there, the deity worship was stopped. So he said, you take that deity of Ramchandra to the Brahmana. And when Lord Ramchandra is absent from the kingdom, he can worship. So if we can't see Krishna physically, although Krishna is everywhere, but we don't have the eyes. We don't have the eyes to see. So therefore, Prabhupada said deity worship. He said deity worship is not hedonism or idol worship. Deity is good as the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is absolute. And in his form, he is non-different. There's Abhinatvam Nama Namino, that this Abhina, this is from Madhya Lila Chaitanya Charitamrita 17th. So Abhina, identical. So we are chanting Hare Krishna, not like a recording, not like some parrots. We are associating with Krishna. Abhinna Tvatam Nama Namino, by chanting Krishna's name. Krishna is on our tongue. And unless we realize in that way, then it is nam aparad or namabas. It means like shadow, this namabas, shadow chanting. Not that we should stop it, if we are not seeing Krishna in the deity, or not seeing the deity that the deity is Krishna, and we're still chanting, it's a not full realization. So namaparad, because we're considering that the name is different from Krishna, but that is not the case. Prabhupada says, we have experience in the material world that the name is different from the substance. If you want to drink water, if we just start saying water, 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 our thirst will not be satisfied. But in the spiritual world, the absolute world, the name and the person is the same. Otherwise, why so much stress on chanting Hare Krishna? That is in Shastra, this Harinama, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalonas Devanas Devanas Deva, Gatiranyata. Again, this is CC, Adi Lila this time. So Prabhupada said, this is Shastric, but there's so many rascals. And they give the example that, chanting, what's the benefit? I can chant soda water, soda water. But they don't know that the injunction of Shastra, they don't know. And actually it's happening, they're blind. And he would always point, see how these American and European and African boys and girls, simply by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, they're becoming purified. Unless there's some spiritual potency in chanting, how are they becoming purified? So this chanting of Hare Krishna has the power. It has the potency. And this Cheto Darpan Marjanam, Bhava Mahadavagni Nirapanam, Shreya Karava Chandrika Vitaranam, Vijavadu Jivanam. And of course, this is Shastastikam, and it's in the Untitled Lila in the 20th chapter. So Prabhupada said about this verse, everything is there, the formula. If we follow the regulative principles, the injunctions of the acharyas are the Shastra, then we will have success. Otherwise, we simply labor uselessly, wasting time. This ya shastravidam utshriya vartate karma karataha, this 16th chapter from Bhagavad Gita, that one who doesn't follow the regulative principles mentioned in the Shastra Vidam. Vidam means regulative principles. Ya Shastra Vidam Utshrija Vartate Kama Karta. And therefore, not following regulative principles, living whimsically, whatever they want, whatever they like. This is sanctioned by some nonsense swamis, or so-called spiritual teachers. Oh yes, you can do whatever you like. Yatto matatato pakta. You can manufacture your way of religious principles. And Prabhupada would say, these things are going on. It's also mentioned in the first canto of the Bhagavatam how one of the signs of Kali will be people will take something from a scripture, whatever they like, but ignore the rest. So, and they will take maybe from a few different scriptures, only the things they like. They make a hodgepodge or a kitchery, but it's not bona fide. It's not actually, it's actually violating the regulative principles, and there'll never be any success. This nasha siddham avapnoti nasukam, neither happiness, no happiness. And so then what to speak of going back home, back to Godhead? So if one is like that, this, nasukam na param gatyam, then there's no question of going back to Godhead. And Prabhupada used the strong words. He says he'll rot in this material world. Shastra Vidyam is the direction of Shastra, and it's given to the different castes and orders of human society. And as humans, we're expected to follow these rules and regulations for our good, for the good of society, for the good of humanity, for the good of the world. And when one doesn't follow them and acts whimsically according to lust, greed, desire, then one can never be perfect in this life. So Prabhupada said, in other words, a man may theoretically know all these things, but if they're not applied to one's own life, then he'll be known as lowest of mankind. So this Shastra Vidyam is required. And here's one, the Shastra Vidyam from the Parashara Smriti. So Parashara, he was the father of Vyasadeva. And he has his regulated principles. And they're also realized souls on the Vedic principles. Not that they just know how to speak the words, they are realized. Just like we know, theoretically, we're not the body. Now, hopefully some of you have, over the years of chanting, have that realization. But at least in the beginning, and sometimes for decades, we know we're not this body, but a practical realization has yet to come. So these great souls, such as Parasara and others, and Parasara, the father of Vyasadeva, I mean, he's quite an advanced soul. So they also wrote many books, and one of those by Parasara was Parasara Smriti. And in that it said that the Chatriyahi Praja Rakshan Shastrapani Padandayam. So there's Shastrapani means always with a sword in hand. We're speaking now a principle for the Kshatriya. Always with a sword in his hand for the benefit of the Prajas, for the mankind. He should be so strong. We have seen, you may know about the Sikhs, northern India. So these Sikhs, very powerful, they're Kshatriyas. And they always have a sword in hand, if not actually in hand. I mean, if you go up there to Amritsar, which is like Sikh Loka, amazing place, you will see sometimes even the women, they're wearing sword around their waist in a sheath, in a holder. And otherwise, they have a symbolic little sword in their turban. You've seen that you see people that wear this turban. So within that turban, there will be a symbolic sword. But the idea means they are ready to act. That's what the message is. And they will act. And what do? The Kshatriyas, they keep order. Prabhupada gives the example that if there's a thief, you've stolen, immediate, cut off the hand, bus. So Prabhupada said this one example will stop millions of thieves to stop stealing. And he was telling that at that time, he said 100 years ago, so 50 years has passed, 150 years ago, this system was present in Kashmir. It's one of the states in northern India. And if a thief was arrested and it was proven that he had stolen, immediately the king would cut off his 2 hands. Prabhupada said, "Bas, finished." Actually, one time he was giving this really intense lecture, and how the society now is just so overrun with, sinful behavior. And he said, so, it's the duty of the leader to control. So just like Kiri was saying in Kashmir, the king, once he'd gone through the system and found to be guilty, the king was the one to cut off the hand. The king, he was a responsible person, and he didn't shrug his responsibility and say, here, someone else do it. The king, he would take that step. So Prabhupada said, this is government. Therefore, the injunction is Chaturahi Pradaraksham Sastrapani Pradana Udayan. Always must be very strict. This is Dharma. In the Manusmriti, it's said that if a murderer, one man has killed another man, Prabhupada said, why man? Even animal. He's a murderer. So nowadays, murder is no offense. They're killing so many babies in the womb. That's murder. And it's become a custom, killing hundreds of thousands of animals daily in the slaughterhouse. It's a custom. The king should be the guardian of all beings, including the animals, the aquatics, the birds, the fish, the trees. They should all be under the protection of the king, the kshatriyas, the administrators, but now not. So I was going to say about this lecture. So Prabhupada was going through sinful activities, this no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. So Prabhupada said, so you find somebody who has murdered another person, kill him. You find somebody who's taken intoxication, kill him. You find someone who has committed illicit sex, kill him. Someone is gambling, kill him. And then he said, very quickly, no more anybody, everybody finished. Because unfortunately, in this day and age of Kali, everybody is involved to some degree or other in sinful activities. And it was the duty of the responsible administrator to see that this was not happening. But now the heads of government themselves are very much involved in committing the same sinful activities. So the word kama karata is significant, that when a person knowingly violates the rules and acts in lust, he knows this is forbidden, but still he does it anyway. So Prabhupada said that is called acting whimsically. He knows this should be done, but he doesn't do it. Therefore, he is whimsical. And such persons are destined to be condemned by the Supreme Lord. In other words, everyone is sinful. This is meaning everyone is sinful. The government is sinful. The people are sinful. So how can anyone be happy? He describes this is a fool's paradise, a sinful paradise. How can you be happy? So therefore, there's, in spite of all types of so-called education, so-called scientific improvement, brainwashing, so many things, people are unhappy. Disease, dissatisfaction, confusion. This is going on because nothing is being properly done. The governments are not strict. So in the Manusmriti, it's said that if a man commits murder, then he should be killed. Otherwise, he'll suffer in the next life. So much suffering. So if the king's order to condemn a murderer to death, it's actually mercy for that person because he will be saved from future trouble. So the king should be strict. And not just false compassion. No, he's a murderer. It's okay. He has only killed one man. Why should he be killed? No, he must be killed. That's the law. And it also here in this Padasara Shmiti, it said, Kshatriya should always be Shastrapani. As soon as there is a discrepancy, he must take proper action. Just like we saw how Parikshit Maharaj, when he came upon that Shudra dressed as a king, killing the cow, cutting the legs of the cow, he immediately pulled out his sword, ready to act. So formerly, when the judgment was given by the king, every day the king, he would sit. And practically there was no criminal activities. There were no criminals. It was very difficult to find a criminal because these four things were forbidden: no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, no mediating. And if one follows those four principles, naturally he'll be sinless automatically. And then the whole population is sinless. But of course, nowadays we are seeing the opposite. So when Kali was awarded 4 places, he was first of all ordered by Maharaj Picket to leave this place. I will not give you any shelter here. You have to go. And, he saw this person killing the cow. Oh, you're in my kingdom. You're trying to kill a cow. And he took out his sword. I shall kill you. And then that Sudra fell down. Sir, I'm also your subject, and this killing is my business. So what can I do? I must have some means of livelihood. Just like the butcher, his means of livelihood is to kill animals. But does that make it right? If the animal slaughterhouse is closed, there'll be so much unemployment that the butcher must have a chance of killing. But no, that is not the law. Oh, the butcher must have employment. No. Yeah, he has to have employment, but of a righteous kind. So these slaughterhouses are the really glaring symbol of a world gone astray. So, Maharaj Pariksit told that person, you cannot live in my kingdom. I cannot provide you with any employment. You must go out. And at the time, Maharaj Pariksit, he was the emperor of the whole world, the whole planet. And he's telling him, go out. And so the guy is saying this sutra, sir, where shall I go? The whole planet's your kingdom. Where shall I go out of your kingdom? Where is that place? Well, Pariksit Maharaj was considering, okay, all right. You can remain in these 4 places. Striya suna panam dutyam yatra papas chaturvida. Where illicit sex, brothel, prostitute's house, you can remain. Striya shuna, slaughterhouse, are unnecessarily where animals are killed. You can remain there. And intoxication, striya suna panam, and intoxication, where the liquor house, you can remain there. And where there's gambling, you can remain there. So he couldn't find any place where to remain, because in that time, these things were conspicuous by their absence. They didn't exist. It was very difficult for that rascal Kali to find a place like that. But now, with the advancement of Kali Yuga, Kali can find a place anywhere, everywhere, practically any home, any place. These things are going on. So this system of human civilization, as conceived by the Vedic process, it's completely different from the rascal civilization at the present moment. And therefore, people cannot be happy. It's not possible. And at the same time, it is impossible to go back to that type of godly civilization because people are so polluted. And therefore, the only means is enunciated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from Brihad Naradya Purana, this Harinam, Harinam, Harinam Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva Navasteva, Gatira Nata. So Prabhupada said, you take this process, chant Hare Krishna mantra, and at least you'll be purified. You'll understand the situation. And if we follow these rules and regulations, Prabhupada said, it's very simple to avoid these 4 principles of sinful life and chant Hare Krishna. Of course, we find sometimes people having difficulty. But if we make our determination that, yes, I want to surrender to Krishna, I want to be the dog of Krishna, not the dog of Kali, then we will automatically want to follow these principles and automatically take the medicine of this age, the Yuga Dharma, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And then Prabhupada said, we are sure to go back, home back to Godhead, and be eternally happy. So that is a few words, mostly by our divine Lord and Master Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Mother, thank you for a nice class. I have one question. Like the Pandavas, Krishna asked them to fight. It can be like they're fighting the mode of goodness. But in the Kali Yuga today, we see so many military wars, so many terrorism. They also take instruction from some kind of a leader. So my question is, are they fighting the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance? Will they die in the battlefield? Are they also going to heavenly planets?
Yeah. According to their particular principle, they may be thinking they'll go to heavenly planet. But if they're fighting according to whimsy, means without Shastra, they won't go anywhere. Prabhupada said they will rot in hell. Not only the Kshatriyas, but anyone who is not following the principles. If they're unwilling to follow the principles, they will rot in hell. That is Prabhupada's words. Now, for a devotee, we shouldn't take advantage. Okay, now I'm chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama. We shouldn't take advantage to chant like that and commit a sinful activity. That is, as we know, one of the 10 offenses against the chanting. But if a devotee is put into a situation where he must respond in a way, say he's being aggressed, or he sees someone else being aggressed, can you just walk away? I don't want to get involved. No, that's also sinful activity. But in terms of fighting principle, like a war or whatever, not the wars that are based on politics are based on lust, greed, and greed, lust. There can be no righteousness to that type of fighting. So just like when we see these, they'll say, like those people that on 9/11 in America, they were crashing their planes into World Trade Center, into the Pentagon, different places. They claim this was righteous activity. And they had so many people to volunteer for that mission, and they knew they would die. But they're thinking, I'll go to heaven and I'll have so many young, not only young girls, young virgin girls. This is, a hallucination. So nowadays, it's practically speaking almost impossible to have a righteous war because there's no righteous rulers. And because there's no righteous rulers, the citizens themselves are not righteous. So as devotees, we need to be kind of clear on that. And at the same time, there may be an instance where violence, where we may be confronted with violence. And we may have to respond. One time Prabhupada gave, if you see somebody attacking your spiritual master, suppose you see somebody attacking me and you do nothing. Is that a very good thing? No. So therefore, the devotees have to be expert in everything, including the art of defense, because violence sometimes has a place. But we shouldn't go out looking for it. We shouldn't be creating it.
Thank you so much for your nice answer. We have other questions from Sahadev and Sadeka Prabhu. Sahadev, please.
Hare Krishna, Sahadev Ji.
Hare Krishna, Mother. Thank you so much. It's always beautiful to have your darshan on our platform. Thank you so much for continuously blessing us. Mother, I have a question about the text. Arjun, being a devotee, was not very much interested in the earthly kingdom. If he won the war, he will enjoy the kingdom on earth. If he lost the war, he will go to heaven. And as a devotee, he wasn't very much interested in going to heaven or enjoying the kingdom on earth here. Nevertheless, because Krishna asked him to fight, eventually he fought.
Yes, Krishna
So,
had to cajole him. He had to, you know,
yes.
a bit.
So my question is, in our world of today, where the spiritual master is the representative of Krishna, when the spiritual master asks the disciple to do a particular duty, and the disciple feels, I don't want to do this, how does the disciple or the devotee get into the mood of Arjuna, that even though I do not want to do this, but simply because my spiritual master has asked me to do it, I must do it? How do we get into that mood?
But you
That's my
just
question.
you just said it. I don't want to do this, but my spiritual master wants me to, and therefore I will accept. That is the mood of Arjuna. He didn't want to, but he accepted. And that is the sign of the higher intelligence. Now, if you have a rascal spiritual master, then you may have to pose a question. You know, the Bali, right? His spiritual master was
Yes.
giving him inappropriate instructions, and he chose to override the instruction.
Okay.
So it doesn't go by our feelings. We have to use our ears to hear and our intelligence to respond. And just as you said, I may not want, but I want to serve my spiritual master, so I will accept.
Thank you very much, Mother.
You answered it yourself.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mother. Our next question from Saleka, please. Saleka.
Hare Krishna, Mother. Thank you so much for the very beautiful class. My question is, in response to your lecture, you emphasize so much on the role of leadership in administration of Vedic principles and justice. And in our modern times, we see that most of, even in Krishna consciousness and then our larger society, leaders are most of the time not righteous. So the instructions and the policies they give are very incoherent with the principles of Dharma or religion. So my question is it possible to have irreligious leaders when the followers are righteous?
Is it possible to have irreligious or which?
Irreligious, that is non-religious leaders.
Yeah.
If the followers or the citizens are righteous, is it possible?
Well, I think we have seen that it's possible. But generally, the righteous citizens will be a minority. I think we've all experienced like that. As devotees, we're a minority. Does that mean this is not possible? No. That's why the sadhusanga, keeping together, is so important to maintain our spiritual strength, our spiritual righteousness. And even if we have to discharge our duty in such a way that may be some discrepancy, Krishna will understand that, because it's more important to maintain the to maintain your life, the life of the other devotees. So there may be sometimes some discrepancy in performing our devotional service, but Krishna will understand that by our intention. If our intention is right, but the situation is such that there's difficulty to actually properly execute the service, Krishna will understand that.
Thank you, Mother. Next question is from Keshava Prabhu. Keshava, please unmute. Keshava Prabhu, unmute your mic.
Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate the class very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I appreciate your class very much. And you were, as you were speaking, you were bringing something to mind that seems to be a current issue in Iskcon. There's this fellow who is initiated, but he refuses to identify as spiritual master. And he's heading up a party called the AryanAmericanParty.com. Ryan Nataidas. Are you familiar with him?
Am I familiar with him?
Yes.
More than you could imagine.
Yeah.
Started out in our Columbus Center. And then because at the time the Columbus Center was only ladies. So when it looked like he was very interested, then we sent him to Donavir Goswami's branch in Kansas to get trained. And he took initiation from Donavir Goswami, who has since now renounced him. For your information, just I think it was last week, the North American leaders, of which I'm part of, took this to the international GBC and requested this person be excommunicated from Iskcon.
Good.
That was not something we did whimsically. We very carefully went, we reached out to him several occasions, tried to make contact with him, but he is so diseased now that there is no way he will listen, hear, or respond appropriately. And therefore, we took this determination with very serious, because excommunicating someone, New Vrindavan, the whole community was excommunicated at one point, only because of the leader. Citizens mostly were kind of innocent. And there was so much suffering because of that. However, here is a person who is defiling Srila Prabhupada. Can we not do something? We have to.
Yeah.
And we tried, we reached out, no response. So we did the needful. So he is no longer, which can't, of course I see he's still going on the internet and doing his nonsense. But now I've requested, yesterday we had a meeting and I requested a statement from the North American Council that when we see some of his nonsense, then we can post that statement in the same thread. So
because his website does say that he is part of the Hare Krishna movement.
Well, he's not.
I know. There's no way. Yeah.
So just, the statement should come today or tomorrow, hopefully today. I'll post it on my Facebook. I'll post it wherever I see his activity. I'll post it on Srila Prabhupada's disciples, so that people are familiar. And if you see it, you all can also post it further so that people at least understand we have taken action.
Okay.
Now, when, somebody wanted to say something about the Hare Krishna movement. Actually, there are several copyrighted titles or addresses. So Hare Krishna movement is actually copyrighted for us. Little known and not so much to be publicized because then, but we're talking an authentic copyright. We have the lawyers, we've paid the fees. Iskcon also, but there's still a challenge from Iskcon Inc. There's always going to be challenges. Administrator, Kshatriya, means ready to face that challenge. When I became a GBC member, I was given, I went to one devotee and I said, oh, can you give me some advice? He said, being a GBC means you have a target on your back and somebody's always going to be shooting at you. He said, if you can't take it, then you're in the wrong service. So, we have to stand up to these attacks and these threats. That is leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Arjuna is being told to do. Stand up and fight.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mother, for your nice question. Based on these last comments, you mentioned we have to stand up and fight. But if we have a case and we want to fight, and we are told that we should not fight because Iskcon does not allow their cases to go to courts. So how do we fight?
Satyam, with truthfulness. We're not going to go out and punch anybody, although we may feel that way sometimes, obviously. No, we're not going to go out and, but we can fight with the burning arrow of truthfulness.
Okay, if the fight is between devotees themselves, that the case is going to court, and the court should decide, and this court is telling me I shouldn't go to court, but I know I'm fighting the right cause. So what should I do?
Well, I don't know what fight you're being, it seems like you have something specific that you're mentioning.
Yeah, I'm something specific because somebody is trying to claim Iskcon property and I want to go to court.
Yeah.
And the management is telling me Iskcon does not go to court.
Well, excuse me, but Srila Prabhupada himself would make such advice. And there's Praman, how do you think we got Juhu? We fought like anything. We went to court. We didn't take it on the chin. We stood up and fought. Prabhupada himself, after we finally won, he said, that was a good battle. We fought. Right?
Okay, thank you.
So I think Kamania was asking, when we come across toxic comments on Facebook, what should we do?
Yes.
As I mentioned, we will be having a statement, so you can just cut and paste that statement. And another option, just ignore the dude. And the Hare Krishna movement is not limited to Iskcon. On a broad sense, certainly it is. You're correct, in a broader sense. But we're not, we also should be concerned about other Vaishnava organizations. But at least for our situation, we can only be responsible for ourselves. At the same time, we should be well-wishers of other organizations who are promoting the cause of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I read a little thing last night, actually. I don't know, should I be quiet now or end?
Go on, please. We have time.
There was this farmer, and he apparently this is a true story. So this farmer, every year he would go in this competition for the best corn grower, and he won that competition every year. And then somebody found out that he was actually taking the seeds from his corn to plant the next crop, but he was also giving to his neighbors. So they said, but why would you give your valuable seeds to your neighbors? Because then they're going to want to go in the competition. And he said, but you don't understand. In order to have a good crop, you have to have good pollination. And if my neighbors have a weak crop and the wind is going and pollen is, exchanging, then my crop will also be compromised. So it's obvious that I must help my neighbors. So in the same way, when we practice and preach Krishna consciousness, we must also consider our neighbors and do our best to assist them also. At the same time, just like in the airplane, when they say about the oxygen mask, first you put it on yourself and then others,
Thank you, Mother. Next question again is from Saleka Prabhu. Saleka, please.
Alicia, Mother. Thank you very much for the answers, Mother. I'm just wanting to ask, as one of the foremost disciples of Srila Prabhupada, I'm very confident that you know what Prabhupada's mood will be in certain situations. And in particular, I'm talking about the present global situation. At different fora, Iskcon devotees, we participate in different programs, and people want to see what is Iskcon's approach to the issue. Yes, I know there is a GBC statement that independently one can decide what to do, but as a movement, as an organization, as Iskcon, what would be our, what do you think Srila Prabhupada will say to the issue of COVID-19 vaccine?
Yeah.
Or what should be our official statement?
Our official statement is what it is. It's up to the individual to determine and decide. There has been much information presented on behalf of the GBC, the SPT, the spiritual, what is it called? The Spiritual Strategic Planning Group. They have combined enormous amounts of information. So just like Arjuna didn't want to fight, and then Krishna preached to him, and that after he preaches, he says, "Now I've told you everything. It's up to you to decide what you want to do." So in the same way, it's ridiculous. There are devotees who are like condemning those who take the jab, and then those who take the jab are condemning those who don't. I mean, that is the advancement of Kali. Let peace be in the world. And if for you, peace means taking the jab, take it. But it doesn't mean you have to force and discredit another person who hasn't. I mean, personally, I will admit I have done it. But I'm not depending on that jab to protect me. I'm fully depending on Krishna, because I know nothing can protect me if Krishna doesn't want it. But still, if Krishna sees that the devotees are making an effort, whether it's by putting on a mask, right before the call, I had my mask on. When I came on, I took it off. It's not that I believe this mask is going to, but it's what we have. Washing the hands. I don't use sanitizer. I use soap and water. You do take your reasonable precaution, and Krishna will see. He will see that. He will note that. And if for you it means not doing it, there may be some people with a legitimate concern. We shouldn't insult them. We shouldn't start fighting with them. I privately wrote to a godbrother who's so boisterous against us, and I'm like, what are you thinking? At the end of the day, we're all going to die, whether it's with COVID or something else. And you're attacking your godbrothers and god sisters. What is this? And some of them are attacking back. So what is this? We've forgotten our duty.
Thank you, Mother.
Just before you go, Krishna Prabhu, just a second. I understand the fact that we have to individually decide what we want to do, and we shouldn't fight others for whatever decision they took. But this question I'm asking because, okay, let me go a little bit more specific. I was in a kind of a forum with the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria and some other dignitaries. And different organizations were there, Christian, Muslims, and other organizations. And at the junction in between the event, a question was posed. So what is Iskcon's position in regards to this? And my question, I tried to I tried to phrase what I've read from the GBC as to Iskcon does not impose, does not accept or reject, because it is government policy. Whoever wants to take and take. I presented that, but I'm just trying to get a more advanced explanation, because at that position, at that moment, I had to represent Iskcon.
Yes.
So yeah, that's why I'm asking, not on individual personality.
Right. I mean, I don't think we're going to change our position because, you know, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know what to do. Like they wanted me to, one devotee who was doing this and posting these videos of like, you know, Vaishnavas and Indradumna Swami and others, why they did that, you know, and they wanted me to do it too. And I actually did have a picture of me getting it, you know, but so initially I said yes, but then quickly, like within a few hours when I saw the reactions to, I said, no, it's not going to be helpful. It'll just add more fuel to the fire of dissension. So I said, I will speak, you know, privately. I tell people, I mean, I consider this private. We're among friends here online. So I don't mind saying this, but I am not going to tell anyone, you should do this. You should be responsible enough to make up your own mind, but you should also be responsible enough to act appropriately. Put on the damn mask, wash your damn hands, you know, keep some distance in a crowded situation. If you don't know it, there's a horrible situation in India right now because they became lax. India, you know, in Mayapur, it's rampant, COVID and typhoid together. And if you look at any of the pictures, nobody has on a mask. They're all, and they're jammed together. What do you expect? Use some common sense. If you don't have intelligence, at least use some common sense. It's allowed.
Our next question is from Kamaniya Mataji, please. Kamaniya, please. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Your time, I was out and I just jumped in as soon as I came home and I heard you were online. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate your, what I think are very nicely balanced statements regarding how we should regard Vaishnavas outside of Iskcon. I especially appreciate it because I came to Iskcon through a Vaishnava outside of Iskcon, Shamdas Prabhu from the Vallabhacharya Sampradaya. And he was always also of your mood, very respectful to others and had many friends. And I'm also very grateful to your guidance on how we should behave regarding COVID and the point you made that actually we should be responsible for making decisions ourselves. And I see how many of us tend to come to the movement and we just, you know, either we rebel one way or we go to the other extreme and we just want to give up all sense of self-responsibility and, you know, have somebody else make all the decisions. And then when it doesn't work out for us, then we can point fingers. So I'm very grateful to you for having such a measured advice for us. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So I have to take your leave. It's 1 minute before 7:30 and I have to jump into another situation. But thank you so much for inviting me. I hope I didn't offend anybody too. That's easy to do nowadays. So I beg your forgiveness if I haven't offended any of you. Hare Krishna.
Mother, you can never offend any of them. No way. No.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you
Please,
so
we
much.
ask all the devotees to unmute yourselves. Let's chant Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mata.
Hey,
Hare
Hare
Very good.
Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Rama, Hare
Krishna Krishna